Duster is canceled by HBO Max after just one season. This is from Deadline here, this article. And they say, after a 5-year buildup, it was a short run for Bad Robot's 1970s crime drama Duster, as HBO Max is not proceeding with a second season of the series from J.J. Abrams and LaToya Morgan. The news comes less than a week after the season 1 finale debuted on the platform. So, I just did, well, I guess not just, right, because the season 1 finale debuted, but it seems like it wasn't that long ago. I did a review for I think it was just the premiere episode, or maybe it was the first 2 episodes. Anyways, I'll try to link it here, obviously, on the channel if you want to check that out. So yeah, I did my review for it. Either the first episode or the first 2 episodes of Duster here on HBO Max, starring Josh Holloway. And yeah, I thought it was good. I didn't think it was like anything amazing, but I didn't think it was bad. It was in that kind of mid-tier, but then the kind of aesthetic and the style to me brought it a little bit above that mid-tier to me, and thought it was actually, a little unique and definitely worth checking out. At the very least, check out the pilot. I thought it was definitely worth checking out. It was something that, had that kind of flair, that kind of aesthetic, like I said, that energy to it that, some other shows in this genre don't quite have, right? And that kind of 70s style too. I thought they did really well with that. So the article goes on to say, it is not entirely surprising because Duster, starring Josh Holloway and Rachel Hilson, wasn't able to generate a lot of buzz and viewer interest. Those who tuned in largely liked what they saw. Duster is averaging 92% among critics and 83% among general viewers on Rotten Tomatoes. The series from Warner Brothers and Abrams Studio Bad Robot also remains in the daily top 10 on HBO Max, but has not been able to get into the Nielsen top 10 for streaming originals, and barely cracked Luminate's list of top 50 streaming originals in its 4th week at the last number 50 spot. It says, quote, while HBO Max will not be moving forward with the second season of Duster, we are so grateful to have had the chance to work with the amazingly talented co-creators J.J. Abrams and LaToya Morgan, and our partners at Bad Robot and Warner Brothers Television. HBO Max said in a statement to Deadline, we are tremendously proud of this series led by Josh Holloway and Rachel Hilson, and we thank them along with our cast and crew for this incredible collaboration and partnership. So those quotes are always funny, right? Because it's like, they love working with them, and yet they still canceled the show. So interesting. But yeah, so those numbers are pretty interesting. I would, obviously it's a streaming show, so it's not like network where we can literally know the ratings and know the viewership. But it is interesting. Yeah, I didn't see a lot of buzz for it, on my review. It didn't seem like it got a whole lot of, traction. I don't think I heard any, people commenting on it or anything. And when I saw the premiere, I think Josh Holloway's name was big. And so some people, obviously J.J. Abrams' name was attached to it. So some people saw it. But yeah, I kind of agree with the article here. I don't think I saw. It was a little bit maybe better than what I thought, though, but it wasn't, it wasn't that big kind of swell of interest or buzz around the show. And something that was interesting, too, is that I think this was the first thing that J.J. Abrams wrote, since the Star Wars, the film, in 2019. In terms of like an actual, teleplay or screenplay, he has some other credits on IMDb for other stuff, but this was like the first actual writing thing that he's done since then. And I just thought that was insane. Like, that's crazy that a guy like him went that long without something like that. Obviously, he's, a producer on a lot of stuff, and I'm sure he's, shared his ideas and his thoughts, but not an actual full-on writing credit. So, anyways. And, so obviously it reunited Josh Holloway and Abrams from Lost. That's what the article is saying here. And it was originally ordered in April 2020, so I was not aware of that. It filmed a while ago, so the options on the cast already had expired and were not extended. So that's interesting too. I did not know that information when I, saw the show. Seeing the writing on the wall, I hear Warner Brothers TV and Bad Robot quietly shop Duster to other platforms where the adrenaline-heavy series could have been a better fit, but the effort was unsuccessful. So that's a really interesting thing too, and I'm a little bit surprised by that, to be honest. I thought that this type of show would be good on a Hulu or I guess like a Peacock maybe. Or something like that, even Paramount Plus. That, I think, this show would have been a really great, Paramount Plus, because it really fits in that kind of, macho stylistic approach that a lot of those Taylor Sheridan shows have been going on and that kind of thing. So yeah, I think this one actually would have done really well had it been on Paramount Plus. So I'm a little bit surprised, to be honest, that something, maybe didn't transpire there, or maybe they didn't even try. I don't know. Now, the other thing, though, that is very interesting and that I did want to mention here is they say the cancellation leaves The Pit as the only current HBO Max original series. Wow, right? Wow. And so I do think also Hacks, does that not count as a HBO Max original series? So I don't know. Maybe that's an error here that they've made, or maybe they don't count Hacks in this regard, or maybe they're only talking about dramas, because obviously Hacks is a comedy. But anyway, so for argument's sake, The Pit and Hacks looks like they are the only original shows that are not based on, IP or, reboots, spin-offs, all this stuff, right? They're the only two now, after Duster has now been canceled because it was an original idea from Abrams and Morgan that worked together on it, and now it's canceled. So that leaves The Pit and Hacks as the only two left on HBO Max as original shows. And I go on and on about this all the time on the channel, how this has been such an issue for the last, number of years, but especially now, the lack of original series. And that is something I think I said in my review for Duster, which I appreciated. Yeah, it's not the most groundbreaking, unique thing I've ever seen, but it has a little bit of that style. There's something to this where it feels a little original. There's something to, just kind of the style, the energy, the aesthetic. It just felt a little new. It felt fresh, even though it's like the 70s, right? But maybe that's just me, living in the time that we're in now and maybe not knowing the 70s. Maybe that's why it felt fresh. But anyways, it did have that feeling to me. And so, and now it gets canceled. It's another one that bites the dust. So, no pun intended maybe. But anyway, so just disappointing, right? Overall, I just would like to see more original series, and yeah, it's just really frustrating. Obviously The Pit has heard, really good reviews, and so that's, this looks like they're going to be really invested in that show. It is a little derivative, obviously, of stuff like ER and, Grey's Anatomy. Is that correct? Maybe that's a little too like melodrama, but anyways, it's very derivative of a lot of those other shows. Whereas, I think even Duster felt a little more fresh than that, and then obviously Hacks is a really great original series there. So, just really frustrating, really terrible news, to be honest, that it leaves only two original series on HBO Max. And the fact that HBO Max is supposed to be one of the better, places for original projects, or I guess just HBO in general, kind of disappointing, that even them are kind of heading in that direction. And this is what I've been saying on the channel, is that Apple TV Plus, to me, is truly the best place right now for original projects, where they're able to greenlight ideas and projects from, creatives, that once had a spot on every network or in every streaming service, and Apple TV Plus, and maybe HBO as well, but they really seem to be the only ones left at this point, unfortunately. So I guess unless your name is Taylor Sheridan, right, and you're at Paramount Plus, then he gets basically anything greenlit. But a lot of those are derivative too. But anyways, enough said there. Duster is canceled, so it is unfortunate. I did not watch the entire season, by the way. Sorry, I have not reached the finale of the season, so I can't comment on that stuff there. But it is just unfortunate. I thought it was definitely worth covering here, that it was canceled. And yeah, I would have liked to see another season. It sounds like, it was kind of a satisfying conclusion for the end of the first season here of Duster. So at least that's good. At least that's, something, right, that it's still maybe worth watching the first season of, because it doesn't feel like they pulled the rug out from under you at the end. But yeah, unfortunate. I just would have liked to see more of this show, because I do think it had a little bit of that unique flavor and felt a little fresh to me. So anyways, love to hear your guys' thoughts on Duster. If you hadn't seen all of it, if you how you feel about this news, anything like that, love to hear from you guys for sure.